blessings, everyone. I wish you all an abundance of energy, peace, and hearts always full of love. In 1992, in the state of West Virginia, right next to the state I live in, there was a story about a young man named Christopher Johnson, McCandless. After graduating from university in Atlanta, Georgia, instead of going to law school, as his parents wished. Chris's parents were a successful couple. His father worked at a NASA, and his mother worked in real estate. From the outside, they looked very happy. But more than anyone, Chris and his sister had witnessed how much they tormented each other. Chris didn't believe that that way of life could bring him happiness. Growing up, studying hard, making a lot of money, and gaining some status in society, then getting married equals happiness, that didn't convince him. Instead, he read many books about a special kind of happiness found in the wilderness, especially the author Jack London's The Call of the Wild. And Chris was drawn to those books, and he began to believe that happiness could only be found in the wilderness, where there are no people, no greed, no fighting, no hatred, no envy. So after graduating from university, Chris decided to donate all the money in his account, about $24,000, to charity. And he quietly set off in an old car to find happiness. Chris also took more extreme measures, such as getting rid of all his identification documents, like his ID and social security number, and heading into the wilderness in unsafe conditions, with no money, no documents, and in an old car. Eventually, Chris decided to abandon the car altogether and hitchhike or walk. After nearly 2 years, experiencing countless difficulties, obstacles, and dangers, he finally reached his destination, Alaska. Alaska is a place with a very harsh climate. In fact, many Americans are still hesitant to go to Alaska. Alaska is a later state of the United States, and Chris ventured deep into the snowy wilderness. Later, his story was written into a book titled Into the Wild. When Chris went into the snowy region, Chris discovered an old bus. It was completely wrecked, and all the machinery had been removed, leaving only an empty shell. Chris used that bus as a shelter. During his time living there, Chris experienced incredible happiness, so much so that Chris would stand on the roof of the bus and shout out in joy, praising the happiness of the wilderness and feeling sorry for his loved ones who hadn't achieved such experiences. When Chris sat and watched the dewdrops fall, the snowflakes fall, or watched the clouds drift by, or watched the deer caring for their young, Chris felt happy. After Chris had been there for over a month, he decided to return and tell everyone about the happiness of the wilderness. But unfortunately for Chris, when he returned to the river he had crossed before, it had been frozen, so he had crossed it easily. But now the ice had melted, turning it into a very large, fast-flowing and cold river. So Chris, unable to return, Chris finally decided to go back to the bus to wait for a chance to return. Chris stayed there for nearly 120 days, because he ran out of food. The food he brought was only enough for a month. So Chris eventually had to hunt for food, but he wasn't good at it and didn't know how to preserve the meat. So he remained in a constant state of hunger. He became so weak from hunger that he could barely move, reduced to a dry, skinny frame. Chris then realized he needed to find another food source, like the herbs in the forest. But being nearsighted, wearing glasses, and exhausted, Chris wasn't careful and mistakenly ate a plant called Veorot potato, which contains poison. Chris had a book about edible and poisonous plants, which stated that if you don't get treatment within 3 hours, you'll die. Chris accepted his fate in 2007. Hollywood made a film about his story called Into the Wild, portraying Chris's death as a mix of satisfaction for having achieved happiness and the wild. On one hand, he was happy to have found happiness, but on the other, he suffered because he couldn't return to where he wanted to be, trapped in the wild. Chris missed his parents, siblings, and friends, and wanted to return to society, but he couldn't. As the days went by, Chris's diary entries were filled with regret, pain, and boredom, overshadowing the happiness he once found in the wild. 6 days later, a group of hunters in Alaska found Chris's body in the forest and reported it to the local authorities. Chris's sister went to retrieve his remains. His true story was made into a Hollywood film, which caused a sensation in the United States around 2007-2008, inspiring many young people to imitate him. Chris quit school, his job, and left his family. Another wave of people condemned his actions, criticizing his foolish decision to seek death, abandoning his parents, family, and career. These two opposing views surged simultaneously, making Chris's story more controversial than ever. The film also depicted the regret and suffering of Chris's parents during the time they lost contact with him. Perhaps those who condemned Chris, those parents who didn't want their children to follow his path, didn't fully understand the mindset of young people. I was also inspired by the book and film when I decided to backpack around the United States for 3 years. I had already seen them, but I still lacked the courage. Seeing Chris do it, it made me think I could too. However, I forgot that Chris was American and I'm Vietnamese. It's different for an American traveling in America versus a foreigner. I met many young people. Even though I traveled in 2011, I met many young people on long distance hiking trails like the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail along the Pacific coast. I met many hikers. And when I volunteered on farms in remote states like Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Iowa, or Alaska, I met many young volunteers. Many came for a few weeks after graduating college. Many university students volunteer there, some even taking a break from their studies without knowing what their future holds. Some are renowned lawyers with plenty of money, but they still spend a few months there. And there are also successful entrepreneurs who come to do manual labor in the fields. When I asked how long they planned to stay, they said they didn't know, only that they felt free and happy at that moment. When we have the chance to sit down, connect, and listen to their stories, we can understand why they made such decisions, even if we don't fully agree with them. Moreover, our experience is that when we have Ho An Dao village in Bao Lok, Lam Dong, we've helped welcome many young people, though some are married, who are experiencing psychological crises, anxiety disorders, and depression. Often, they don't tell their families, hiding their feelings from their parents, fearing their parents will worry, be saddened, or perhaps not understand their situation and won't empathize or accept them. Therefore, many have to run away from their families to reach Ho An Dao village with the sole purpose, of healing their souls, regaining balance, and rediscovering their true selves. If you were like us, welcoming and caring for them, you would sympathize and wouldn't want to criticize them for running away from life, being irresponsible, or disappointing their parents, etc. Because you'd understand they can't learn anymore, they can't take anything else in, they can't breathe anymore. Even though leaving their spouse and children for a few months may seem wrong or irresponsible, they are in a very difficult situation and have tried everything to resolve it. Since they couldn't find a solution, they seek our help, and when we sit down and listen to their stories, we realize this is a necessary decision, even though we might see it as not a perfect decision, and it shouldn't be a long-term one. It can be just a phase, and that's okay. But even if you're a mental health counselor with experience, and you deeply examine each person's situation, you might realize that this person needs 5, 10 years or even more to heal their wounds. So labeling them as irresponsible, neglectful, or insensitive to their family is truly unfair to them. When reading Into the Wild or watching the movie, everyone sees Chris from different perspectives. I approach Chris as a friend, someone who has had a lot of contact with people who have similar psychological issues as Chris. If Chris had been happy at home, if Chris had found peace and joy, then Chris wouldn't have done what he did, because it was an extremely risky journey, and going to Alaska is very, not dangerous, but trading that danger to pursue happiness is something to be admired. It means you want to escape that exhaustion, those limitations, to achieve what you want to reach, your dreams, even though the ending was tragic. But Chris did what he wanted to do. Chris lived and experienced few days of happiness, which is better than many people who are drowning in their feelings. They can't escape. They know they're suffering, but can't express it. They know they want to escape, but there's no way out. We have to acknowledge that Chris first He made a personal effort without grumbling, without shouting, without blaming others. Although there were times when Chris was very angry, yelling society, meaning society is to blame, that society creates many things that make people live insecurity and unhappiness. He was angry, but those were just moments of losing control. Otherwise, Chris practiced focusing on yourself, having expectations for yourself, creating your own happiness instead of waiting or hoping anymore. That is something very admirable, more so than many people who only know how to condemn. They only know how to accuse, blame, and criticize others without finding a way out for themselves. But Chris's limitations, I say limitations, not mistakes, because it's only a mistake if Chris knows and still does it. This is because Chris didn't know. I wish I could have met Chris. It's a pity that the year Chris went into the wild was the year I started attending music gatherings, so I wasn't mature enough to advise Chris. But if I meet people like Chris now, I think you should also experience the wilderness. You should also experience working in volunteer camps. But you know what? No matter where you run, you can't escape yourself. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, suffering will still catch up to you. Loneliness, deadlocks, despair, resentment, they will still chain you because suffering is within, not without. If you believe in the wisdom of Buddhism, the first basic thing you must believe is that suffering is within, not without. Although there are times when we are weak, exhausted, and we blame and resent, but when we are sober, when we regain our composure, we must remember that all suffering comes from within. It's very difficult to accept this, but you don't have to accept it right away. Just keep experiencing, keep living, and remember to observe so you can see that almost all, maybe over 90% of the causes of suffering are within you. The circumstances may be adverse, harsh, or contrary to what you expect, but it's just a factor. It only plays a supporting role. The main author of your suffering and pain is greed, hatred, and delusion. In the movie Into the Wild, they also don't forget to portray the moments when Chris wasn't happy in the wilderness, the loneliness of being alone in the wilderness, the regret of not being able to hunt any animals, the regret of accidentally shooting a moose that had offspring and not being able to consume the meat of the moose. And then there are times remembering childhood when there were very clumsy actions, etc. Those are moments of unhappiness, moments of facing oneself. So, the act of escaping from a place with too much pressure and too many constraints, I think it's also necessary, but only for a period of time. In psychotherapy, they also encourage you to change your environment for a while. The Buddha advises us to change the channel. That is, change the object of contact. For example, if you're with someone and you've tried everything to help, that person be less difficult, but they're still difficult with you. You've pleaded, you've begged that person not to make you suffer anymore, but they continue to complain, criticize, accuse you, insult you in every way. You've tried your best, but you still can't change the situation. Then the solution is to temporarily stop contact with that person for a while. All psychotherapists advise you to do that. Separating, then in Zen as well. They advise you to temporarily separate from the situation because our mind is too tightly attached to the situation, completely dominated by the object, by the situation. Then we must temporarily separate. Separate to do what? So that object, so that situation doesn't continue to water it, doesn't continue to activate it. If you are a firm person, if you are a stable person, you know how to protect your mind, then the accusations, the toxins of the other person won't touching you, might not affect you. But you're clearly very weak if you can't defend yourself. You need to separate yourself from that environment. At Ban Hong Dao, we rely on 3 factors to help someone who is having psychological difficulties. The first factor is that they must come to the village, which means separating from the environment, an environment where not many people understand or empathize, an environment where you're only blamed, condemned, and accused, an environment where you have to squeeze out all your energy to work tirelessly all day to temporarily forget your wounds, but you can't really forget. Your wounds still control you. So my first suggestion is that you temporarily stop everything. Don't look outward anymore. Don't waste energy. You need some time to retreat. In the US, there's a word called retreat, which means to withdraw. You need a period of doing nothing, saying nothing, and even thinking nothing. Why? To recover energy, to regain balance. The environment we've created at Ban Hong Dao is a completely silent space with very beautiful, even poetic scenery. Blue lakes, overlapping mountains, pine trees rustling in the wind, cool breeze, so that when you come there you're nurtured, whereas the environment you're currently living in is destroying you. We still don't encourage Zen practitioners to pack up and leave forever. We don't encourage our patients to abandon their families and leave for good. We only look at each person's situation and give advice on whether they should stay for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, or even longer, but we must use the method of separation or detachment. For example, when you use your phone and you're not careful enough, you let the phone overwhelm you. You touch your phone every minute. Not even a minute, just 20 seconds. The phone is always by your side. Every time someone calls, you jump and panic, wondering if it's that person. Or who? A creditor? A creditor in material terms or an emotional creditor? And your phone has too many functions. It's too attractive. So you're always touching it, wondering what to find on it. Because it has so many images, colors, and sounds, it draws you in, and then you lose connection with reality. You walk, but you don't know where you're going. You eat, but you don't know what you're eating. You speak, but you don't know what you're saying. You look, but you don't know who you're looking at. That's not a living being, is it? It's a corpse. And that phone turns you into such a reality. That's because it's stronger than you and it has overwhelmed you. There's a story about an old man sitting fishing, and because he sat there all morning without a single fish biting, he got bored, so he drifted off to sleep, and suddenly the fishing rod jerked. He jumped up and tried to grab the rod, but the fish had already dragged the rod a meter, so he lunged after it and ended up falling into the river, struggling to pull the rod and the fish up. A child sitting far away saw this and said, "Dad, is the old man catching the fish? Or is the fish catching the old man? Are you catching the phone, or is the phone catching you? Are you catching the work, or is the work catching you? Are you catching that emotional connection, or is that emotional connection catching you?" Catching means to master, to control, to chain. When you find that you can't control your phone use, maybe at this stage you're weak and your energy is low, then temporarily set a rule for phone use, meaning only turn on your phone once an hour, for example, or only use your phone each day from this time to that time, and then turn it off completely, or give your phone to someone to hold for you and ask for it back when you need it, or just turn it off on the weekends. Turn off your phone for 2 days on the weekend. That's called separation or detachment, because you know, if you keep it by your side, you can't control yourself. So you have to use the solution of separation, even if it's just for a while. When will you be stable again? When will you use your phone mindfully, consciously, and proactively, so you control the phone instead of the phone controlling you? What can you do to take control? Only then can you connect with life and turn it into a tool to serve your life's purpose. But if you get attached to everything you touch, and every person you meet becomes an emotional entanglement, please consider taking time for yourself. I am not advising everyone to stop loving, but if love is problematic, if love is suffering, if love means drowning in those emotions, then whether it's the love between mother and child, father and child, siblings, lovers, or spouses, we all need a period of separation, detachment, and the ability to say no. Sometimes we feel suffocated and overwhelmed. So we pack our bags and head to the peaceful countryside for a few days, doing simple things like gardening or herding cows, or simply enjoying the scenery. It feels very peaceful and comfortable. That's a wise decision. The problem is sometimes we don't know what's bothering us. The problem is sometimes we know what's bothering us and someone has pointed it out, but we can't break free, we can't escape. We don't dare to make that decision, even though further contact will cause suffering, make it hard to breathe, and might even break us. but we don't have the courage to break a long-standing habit and to establish a new habit, like living alone in a strange place without doing our daily routines. We fear that feeling, especially those who are depressed. It's even harder to separate from the environment that's putting too much pressure on us. We know we need to escape, but we can't. So in such cases, we need help. Tell Lord or friend, please pull me out of this swamp. Please do it somehow. Yell at me, scold me, whatever it takes to give me enough courage and strength to get out of this swamp. Otherwise, if I stay in it, I'll surely die. It's sad to see so many people who clearly aren't in control of their lives anymore. Clearly, they can't control their emotions. Clearly, they're suffering too much from their relationships, and we know they need to separate from that harsh environment for a while, but they don't believe it. They don't believe that they can survive by separating, that separating can heal their wounds. And if you don't have enough faith, you don't have enough motivation to do it. Many people need a crisis, a misfortune, to make the decision that it's time to go and heal their souls. So, not less. When you come to me for advice, I immediately know that you need to stop, rest, and nurture your soul for a while. Maybe go to a meditation center for a few weeks. But you just say, yes, but you don't have the determination to go. Many people choose an easier method traveling. That's also a form of separation, right? And I think that's a better solution than staying and not changing the situation. But remember, no matter where we go, even if we choose a peaceful place, if our mind isn't peaceful, if our mind is turbulent, then that peaceful place loses its meaning. A sad person finds no joy in any scene. When the painful emotions return, when the wound is reactivated, when the afflictions start to overflow, even if you've gone to that peaceful place, you still can't change the situation. And even that peaceful scenery means nothing to you. So, changing the scenery only helps you temporarily. It's only for a very short time. Try living in the countryside for 2 or 3 days, and you'll be bored to death. You'll miss your bathroom, your bedroom, your kitchen, your loved ones, your job, your phone, and then you'll come back. So, if you can go to a place that can truly help you find peace, then go to a meditation center, because the scenery there is definitely quiet. But there are methods there to help your mind have a focal point. But if you just go to the countryside, you don't have any methods to confront your mind, to go straight into your mind to heal, then the wound will still overflow. So when you go to a meditation center, they will teach you 2 methods so you can break away from your own greed, hatred, and delusion. Within your heart, your own troubles. The first method is called samadhi, which means your mind is wandering, drifting, flying aimlessly. If that's the case, then they will guide you to focus on one point. That is present in the moment. Any point will do. For example, you can choose a leaf or a spot, a stain on the wall, a pebble, a candle, but it's best to choose a point on your body so that wherever you move, that point is always present. And the closer it is, the easier it is to concentrate. There are many points. You can choose the tip of your nose, your philtrum, or your breath. That is the deepest samadhi, focusing on your breath. Then your mind at that moment wanders, remembers the past, remembers the person who hurt it, remembers the painful story. Then you train it to return to the present. Then it remembers the past again, and you bring it back to the present, focusing on one point. Then it remembers the past again, and you bring it back to the present. Then it remembers the past again, and you bring it back to the present. You have to do that for dozens of sessions, depending on the level of your mental agitation, depending on your inner strength. The process of bringing your mind back to rest on one point, how long it takes. And when your mind is willing to settle down and is willing to stay and cling to that object or subject, then the healing begins. The process of healing the wound begins. Most of our wounds only become active and festering when we remember them and we feed them. Feeding them means we try to identify with that emotion and try to remember the past, rummage through memories, then analyze and explain who is right and who is wrong, and reason everything out. That's called feeding the wound. But when you don't feed it, it means you have to ignore it. The way we usually ignore it is by sleeping. Sleep is liberation. That is, even if someone is scolding or nagging, you fall asleep. Many people choose to go to sleep to calm their nerves and feel better because they can't stand to open their eyes. There are people who go for a cup of coffee, a can of Coke, a bottle of beer to find a friend, play chess, take a drive, go shopping, go online, travel, do all sorts of things, even cook to relieve stress and depression, to find a comfortable feeling. Of course, when we are in a state of stress, fatigue, and pain, you have the right to choose a solution to find a comfortable feeling. But how can you find it forever? How can you keep wandering outside to find a comfortable feeling? Because sometimes you can achieve it and sometimes you can't. And that's not to mention that the more you wander looking for feelings of comfort, the more you deplete your energy, and the more energy you deplete, the bigger the wound becomes. So the Buddha, a master of psychology, advises not to run anymore. Don't look for anything outside anymore. Turn back inward. Because we have a very great ability to heal our own wounds, of our own, if we know how. Because the wound is in the mind, and the cure also comes from within. In your mind, you feel that person is chaining you, right? That person is manipulating your life, right? That person is making you suffer, right? You should think again. If you don't allow it, that person won't be able to do it. Why is it called allowing? because you have a need for that person. You need that person, you depend on that person, you're too deeply attached to that person. You're addicted to that person. Maybe you've even benefited from them, so they have the power to make you suffer. That's how it is. If there's no connection whatsoever in a relationship, how can you make each other suffer? When your desires come out, wanting things to be a certain way, that's when the constraints begin. Of course, if you are strong and stable, wanting the latest phone isn't a problem. You can want it. But clearly, when that desire arises, your mind is always thinking about the phone. Everywhere you go, you see the phone. That means you're bound to the phone. And that's not even considering all the consequences after you get that phone. There are so many consequences from the phone. Can you control the phone so that desire is a wrong desire, not suitable for your current situation? You want a lover. Why? To ease loneliness, to have someone to confide in, someone to cook and iron, someone to be a companion, someone to share sorrows and joys. Those are decisions that I don't think are wrong, but do you have the courage? Do you have the inner strength? Will you control this situation, or will it control you? If you feel you're still too weak, don't go out there. If you feel you're too sensitive, your psychology changes erratically, please don't love anyone. Because if you love someone, you'll make them suffer, saying that you won't accept it. You have the right to love. Who can stop you? But then, eventually you come here complaining, Master, save me! Save you from what? I told you from the beginning, take it slow. Love in a balanced and stable way, then love. So, if you're strong and stable, then love will become a necessary and magical ingredient. But if you're not strong and stable, it will tear you apart, and you'll become trapped in love. Now, you want to find liberation, right? Where to find it? A sedative? Or a trip far away forever? Is that what you call liberation? We want to escape this marriage. It's too painful, unbearable. Of course, when counseling about marriage, I know that there are couples we can't save. Neither side loves each other anymore. The only thing that can help them is if they still love each other, even though they might think they don't anymore. But looking deep down, we know they still love each other, so we try to help them rekindle that love. But if they've truly stopped loving each other, it's very difficult to help. There are even couples who make each other suffer for decades with violence. So I don't have the authority to advise them to end it. I just analyze that if you continue, you'll have to endure the suffering, which is the same, because at least one side has to change a little. The best is still both sides changing. And even if you end this marriage, the problem is still within you. You're a failure in love. And if you keep establishing a relationship with someone else without freeing yourself from the delusions, limitations, and weaknesses within yourself, you'll continue your cycle of suffering. So even if you run to heaven, suffering will still chase you. Even if you run to some distant planet, the problems in your inner mind will still be unstable and it will still chain you. The Buddha advises, don't run anywhere. Just turn inward, stop and turn inward again. And we haven't fully believed in that. Whenever we suffer too much, we still want to pack our bags and leave. We don't think that if we can change ourselves, master our emotions, overcome our limitations and weaknesses, then liberation will appear. Liberation under conditions where there are no constraints, where everything is peaceful, is too easy. But liberation amidst constraints, amidst difficulties that are still there, and you can still escape the shackles, that's what's truly wonderful. And humans are entirely capable of doing liberation amidst constraints. Because when your mind is at peace, you've mastered your greed, hatred, and delusion, then the shackles, the demands, the claims, the bad habits, the negative energies of others can't touch you. It might be hard to believe in that state, but it's a real state. If you practice diligently, you'll achieve that state. No matter what someone says, curses, or bothers you with, you'll still smile. Liberation in the present, liberation within yourself, is when you've overcome your greed, hatred, and delusion. Of course, you're still human. You're not yet a saint. So you can't completely eliminate greed, hatred, and delusion. But if you practice in a truly serious way, you can limit your afflictions. You can filter out a basic portion of your greed, hatred, and delusion. Then it's as if the suffering in this life is only half as much. You must believe in that. You must believe that if your mind is at peace, you will see everything as peaceful. If your mind is liberated and not controlled by greed, hatred, and delusion, then you'll see liberation everywhere. That is true liberation. Liberation to leave a certain situation that's too harsh is temporary liberation. Absolute liberation is to escape from the limitations, the weaknesses, or the capacity of our hearts that's not yet big enough, breaking the shackles within, from thoughts and impulses of greed, hatred, and delusion to feelings of greed, hatred, and delusion. Breaking them will bring freedom. Greed is desire, overcoming desire will bring freedom. In the movie Into the Wild, there are many great songs. I especially like the song Society. It has the line, it does thinking, more and less is more. Have you ever thought that adding is subtracting? Or that subtracting is also adding? Adding more material, adding more conditions will lead to less freedom. Add freedom and you'll subtract material comforts. Few people reach the level where they have many material comforts, but still maintain a pure and clear mind, maintain not their freedom, That's why the Buddha always advises monks not to own property. If they do, it must be the property of the community, serving the benefit of the community, not personal property. That idea developed later with the rise of Mahayana Buddhism. But in the original Theravada Buddhism, there was absolutely no owning of property. There's a story that one day the Buddha was sitting in the forest with the monks when a farmer ran up, distraught. He said, "Oh, monks, have you seen my herd of 12 cows pass by here?" The Buddha turned to look at his disciples, and they all shook their heads, saying they hadn't seen them. So the Buddha said to the farmer, "Sir, why don't you try looking down that path over there? We've been sitting here since morning and haven't seen anything." As the farmer walked away, stamping his feet and crying, he said, "Oh my God, last year I lost several plots of sesame, and now I've lost my herd of 12 cows. I can't survive this." And when the farmer was far away, the Buddha turned and reminded the monks don't have any cows to lose, right? That's not to mock farmers, but to remind monks not to bring cows back. Sometimes, if we don't manage our minds well, we become soft-hearted. It's easy to lead a cow back without realizing it, but once it's back, your freedom and liberation are limited. Even if we use them for community service, but we must be very careful. The Buddha didn't say that. Only Mahayana Buddhism said that later. The Buddha said absolutely no. Therefore, the Buddha's precepts are called Balamangseksesa Bait Gite I thought, meaning that whichever precept you keep, you are liberated because of that precept. If you keep the precept of no alcohol, then alcohol can no longer bother you. If you keep the precept of not lying, then lying can't affect you anymore. If you keep the precept of not stealing, then possessions can't affect you anymore. You're free from all those things. Of course, the process of keeping precepts is also terrible. It's not easy, but the more you limit your enjoyment, then the more freedom you have. I'll give you a simple example. When I hitchhiked during my 3-year walk around America, no one who drove nice cars gave me a ride. It was all bad cars, beat-up cars. Why? Because people who drive nice cars are afraid. They're afraid of a stranger flagging them down, a person with a backpack standing on the road. They don't know if there's a bomb, a gun, or weapons in the backpack. They might steal the car, they might kill someone, do something stupid. So people who drive nice cars don't dare to see. Suddenly, when you have a nice car, you lose your kindness. If you went back and exchanged your nice car for an old one and gave that person a ride, showing compassion, then you'd restore your kindness. Then, in cities, in urban areas of America, if you step onto someone else's property without asking permission first, 1, they might let their dog attack you. 2, they'll call the police. Or 3, they'll take a shotgun and fire it into the air to warn you. It's called inviolable property. But if you go to rural America, the doors aren't locked. And even if they know you're coming, they'll leave a note saying, "Go in and rummage around for food, find a place to sleep, and we'll see you later." Why? Why can they do that? Because they have less material possessions. Because they aren't afraid of losing anything. Because they have less material possessions, they aren't afraid. Because they aren't afraid, they dare to do anything, including showing the necessary kindness of a human being. See, convenience has made you lose your freedom. You can't fully express the most wonderful things within yourself. So, when you see that your boat is overloaded and has been sitting still for a while, not moving at all, and you want to save the boat, the necessary measure is that you have to get on that boat and start throwing cargo overboard. Throw off the heaviest, most expensive one first. Then the boat will move forward. That's the necessary measure of detachment. Of course, if you're strong enough to pull the boat with all those cargo containers, then there's nothing to say. But you can't pull it. Your life is mediocre, difficult, stagnant, and even full of suffering. Then you have to consider whether you need to detach from something, whether you need to let go of some cows. 12 cows are 12 attachments, 12 concerns. If you only have 5 cows and you can still live comfortably, then you only have 5 attachments. And if you only have 1 cow and you can still live comfortably, then you only have 1 attachment. It's a very simple equation. But in reality, there are things that you can't let go of, things that you can't get rid of. If so, just temporarily step away for a few days. The situation will change. But we can't use the method of detachment for every situation. It's just teaching temporary methods. So, after teaching about the joy of detachment, the Buddha taught about concentration. To experience joy and happiness, you need to let go of some things. You must let go and then focus your mind to develop inner strength. Don't let your mind wander aimlessly. Focus on one point. And this focus can expand beyond just the breath. Can't it? You can pay attention to any object, but each time you pay attention, it must be deep and long-lasting. You can pay attention to any object, but each time you pay attention, it must be deep and long-lasting, so that your mind doesn't wander. And the third method, after teaching about focus, can lead to liberation from the chains of emotional disturbances. Then you learn the third method called mindfulness of joy and happiness, which is learning to observe your own afflictions and wounds. The first 2 methods involve avoidance. You find ways to restore energy without touching the wound. But the third method is that you must learn to face the constraints and afflictions within yourself. But it must be through the other 2 steps first. You must let go of some necessary things, at least temporarily stop working, temporarily stop contacting the object for a while, so you can dedicate all your time and energy to developing focus. Then you start learning to face your problems directly. That's called mindfulness. And you start learning to observe afflictions without identifying with them. We repeat this many times, but the method is just one thing. It's very difficult to do, which is learning to observe without identifying with afflictions. Then you won't become a slave to afflictions. Now you have a greater power than afflictions to stand there and smile as you watch them pass by. Through the process of developing detachment and joy, through the process of developing focus and joy, you gain a power, a mindfulness power, the strength of awareness to stand and watch afflictions without them being able to do anything to you. When you reach that level, the opportunity for liberation has opened up. You can even look at your wrong perceptions, your delusions, your ignorance. That is, you never knew it was a wrong perception. For example, a concept of true happiness. You think happiness is just satisfaction. But when you have calmness and wisdom again, you know satisfaction is not true happiness. True happiness is, for example, when you know how to enjoy the conditions of happiness you have. For example, when you find peace in your heart. For example, when you share good values with others. Making others happy, that is true happiness. You transcend the idea of serving your ego to reach a bigger, more correct idea, which is to spread your happiness to others. That's called liberation. Liberation from your limitations, your weaknesses. Liberation from greed and anger. Both greed and anger are binding. A mind that always wants is a constraint. A mind that always wants is a constraint. Even if what you want is necessary, but it's not suitable for your situation, for your ability, then that desire also needs to be withdrawn. When you put that desire out, your life is turned upside down. It affects others. Then you should withdraw that desire. If you put that desire out, you lose balance, you lose connection with life, you lose happiness. Then you withdraw that desire. That's called transcending yourself. And anger, a mind that always resists, responds, reacts, or is intolerant of unpleasant things that happen. When you learn to observe it, not letting it form. When it appears, you have already observed it, not letting it push you to burst out in words and actions. You have overcome anger. That is liberation in Buddhism, overcoming your limitations, your weaknesses, your afflictions. Overcoming greed and anger is sometimes easier than overcoming ignorance. The wrong views, the narrow views of yourself. And only when we return to ourselves enough, you've developed concentration and mindfulness, enabling you to focus and dwell peacefully. You can easily stay in the present and observe your afflictions. That's when liberation begins. Liberation has begun. You are living in liberation, even though there are still afflictions, they can't affect you anymore. Occasionally, when you lack mindfulness and practice, Afflictions may briefly take hold, but you return to your practice, observe the afflictions, and they will subside. As awareness spreads through you, in your words, steps, breath, everywhere, you are living in liberation. But when unconsciousness dominates, it stirs up layers of afflictions. Then it's hell with so much suffering. The pain manipulates you. True liberation is freeing yourself from within, not from external things. Even if you escape externally, but not internally, you'll still suffer and remain bound. I hope you have the strength to give yourselves many opportunities to let go of what needs to be let go, what weighs heavily on your hearts, things that prevent you from developing wholesome qualities and doing good deeds and living a good life should be let go. There may be things you let go of permanently, but letting go for a while, creating some space, can change the situation. Your life will change. Next, dedicate time to developing concentration. Don't let your mind wander. Bring it back to a single object of focus. Finally, be diligent enough to constantly observe the fluctuations of your mind so you can see liberation happen in the present. You can find freedom, peace, and tranquility in this very life. Thank you for listening. We have 15 minutes for Q&A. Please come up with your questions. Please, the person down there. Yes, I respectfully greet the Master and everyone in the audience. I'm currently a third-year student and I have a problem. I want to temporarily suspend my university studies, and I've registered for a meditation course starting on the 12th at Hong Trung Sampagoda in Nam Cat Tien Forest. I've discussed suspending my studies with my parents, but they're against it. They also don't approve of me attending the meditation course. They just want me to focus on my university studies. TED is coming soon, and I don't know how to face and explain this to my parents, because when the new semester starts in January, my parents will find out about my academic progress and will have to pay tuition fees to continue my studies. But I want to temporarily stop. I feel like I can't hide this from my parents, and when I bring it up, we argue and can't understand each other. I need your help, Master. May I ask why you decided to stop university to study meditation? Looking back at the past 2 years of university, I feel that my energy and spirit have become increasingly negative. I can't concentrate in class. How long do you plan to stop? I actually want to quit altogether. How did you decide that this is the right decision? I had this desire in the summer of my second year, and I shared it with my parents. I feel that when I choose what I want, my spirit improves. Also, after the first semester ended, after the exams, I had a 1-month break, and I found that I developed many habits and my spirit improved. I was no longer positive. But when I'm forced to go to school, I feel a lot of affliction. So, how long do you plan to study meditation? And What will you do for your future after studying meditation? The meditation course lasts 10 days from the 12th to the 23rd of this month. I'm working a part-time job with like-minded people to develop myself. I want to work there so I can start a business, to be financially independent and support myself. I don't want my parents to have to support me. Then I'll practice meditation to calm my mind and be better. And I want to go backpacking, as you said, to get back to nature. What is your ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is that when I achieve my wishes, when my mind is pure and I'm a good person, I want to share and help those who are like me and are confused, who don't dare to do anything. They're still stuck. I'll help them. Well, for now, I'll give you some advice. Your decision to quit university, like many other young people, is a big shock to your parents, and usually no parent can easily accept it. So if you want your parents to accept you, you have a responsibility to explain and convince them so that your parents see that your upcoming plan is either equivalent to going to university or that it's safe and secure, or that it brings some real value and benefits to you now. But if you bring up meditation, it'll be worse. Your parents will suspect that you have some wrong perception, so you've made a rather strange and even terrible decision. So you have to be sincere, wholehearted, and find every way to talk to your parents, to present your situation, and need your parents to understand and help you. If you can't do it, then you have to ask your siblings for help. And if that doesn't work, you have to use heartfelt letters to say that you're just. I still suggest you defer your results. You should try it for a year. You can defer for a year, right? So in that 1 year, you need to use that year for your wishes completely. You experiment to see if your decision is right or wrong. Maybe after a year, you'll regain your form. You'll regain your balance. And you'll find that going to university is no longer difficult. At least you'll fulfill your responsibility to your family, which is to please your parents first, even though you know that going to university may not be beneficial, but at the time when you've recovered your energy, it won't put pressure on you anymore. But if after a year you still see going to university as terrible as it is now, then of course you should follow your decision. However, your remaining responsibility is to wholeheartedly and sincerely try to convince your family. Of course, you may succeed or fail, but you have to put in 100% of yourself, put aside your ego, and hope that your parents will accept that decision, because it's very difficult to accept. You should know that. It's not just saying it once and hoping they'll listen. It's not like that. You have to be very sincere to get your parents' support. There's no stronger motivation than having allies who are your loved ones, especially your parents. You'll succeed in everything you do. So, I still advise you to experiment for 3 months, 6 months, and at most 1 year. Then you look back at the journey you've been through. See what steps you've taken, what you've grown into. You need a group of people to verify your growth, to see that the decision to stop studying, to learn at this time, is the right decision. And one more thing I'd like you to consider is that finding happiness and then sharing it with others is wonderful. But not everyone can do it. That's the theory. Yes, I thank you, Master. I still appreciate your thoughts, and I wish you all the best in doing that. If our society had more people like you willing to commit to finding happiness for themselves and then sharing it with the community, it would be great. But if it were easy, many people would have done it already. Very few have succeeded. I hope you're among the few, and to see if you have what it takes. To do that right now, you have to win the battle of convincing your parents. And throughout that year, you have to constantly win over yourself so that you see yourself getting better and more mature every day. And your parents have to acknowledge that. Then you're finding happiness in your hands, and sharing it with the community will become a reality. I wish you success. Welcome. I respectfully greet you, esteemed Buddhist followers. I have a question. I've started practicing meditation for about a month now, following your teachings. But according to the method you taught, but I haven't experienced it in reality yet. In the beginning, my meditation was very stable, but for about a week now, I've noticed afflictions, delusions, and even my mind has become clouded and unstable. I want to ask you, what is this state called? And should I continue with this method, or should I stop and study more? Thank you, Master. First, the progress in practice isn't always consistent. It's normal for it to regress, even for those who have been meditating for years. That happens when you don't integrate meditation into your daily life continuously. You only meditate for a certain period, like half an hour or an hour a day, but during other times, you don't know how to bring meditation into your life. During those times, afflictions take over, and it's due to your lifestyle. This week, you haven't been able to control your afflictions. So afflictions occur continuously with pressure, stress, and fatigue. Therefore, when you meditate, it doesn't yield results, which is very normal. My advice is, first, if you've mastered the technique, you should increase your meditation time or try to bring meditation into your daily life whenever you remember. Second, if you're not sure you've mastered the technique, take a practical meditation course for 7 days. For 10 days, you'll gain more techniques, motivation, and confidence to practice. Meditate more deeply to achieve better results. Do you have firm faith in that decision? Yes, Master, I do. But my current life and job are quite good. So I don't know if I give up this job, will I find something better? How long have you been struggling with this issue? More than a year, Master. More than a year. Well, I think you're mature enough, and you've had enough time to contemplate your decision, so just try it. However, I still suggest you, I don't know which tradition you're practicing. I previously attended a 10-day meditation course at the Hong Trung Sun Temple. So you follow the Vipassana tradition? Yes, I think Vipassana. I feel reassured when you practice that tradition, and I still believe that you should continue to observe your emotions and thoughts that come to you, so you can further verify your decision. The fact that you're going against the current, not following societal trends, and you feel lonely, is something you must consider and accept. Sometimes your decisions and perspectives may take 10 or even decades for people to accept. Not everyone will accept your views. When you choose a path that the majority doesn't take, you must accept loneliness, or that very few people are going in that direction. So, I asked you if you have enough firm faith. If you still don't fully believe in your decision and are still swayed by those around you, then you must connect and seek out like-minded people, those who don't want to seek happiness in fame or material comforts. Happiness is very simple: living in harmony with nature and serving the community. I don't think there are few of them, but I don't know where to find those people, Master, because my current job and life don't allow me to interact with many people, and also because I don't live in Vietnam. I live abroad where we don't speak the same language, so I often live alone. Now I'm thinking, if I give up my life and job there and return to Vietnam, I don't know where to find people with the same aspirations and where that community will be. Master, is there anyone here with the same aspirations? Raise your hand. There are many hands. You must find a way to establish that channel. Those who seek simple happiness, or those who aspire to serve the community. If you create an association, it will connect you with many friends, and perhaps I can also lend a hand, because I also once dreamed of establishing a community living in mindfulness, happiness, consuming less material comfort, living in harmony with nature and practicing. Meditation is truly living, developing the capacity for mindfulness and love, so knowing where I am. You'll either join your community or you'll join mine. Just speak up, and you'll find a way to speak up. Many people will join you, and you'll feel supported and confident in your choice. You must realize that deciding to give up the good things you have, those excellent opportunities, to seek out difficulties and hardships, means you must anticipate being ridiculed and attacked. You might even doubt your own decision. But valuable things are never easily achieved. You have to be persistent and face difficulties to achieve them. So, if you're facing difficulties, it means you're heading towards true values. I wish you success. Thank you, Master. Master, I'm upstairs. I have 2 questions for you. First, can you advise me on a way? I've asked you before, and applying it has been quite helpful. But I'd like to ask for more advice, so if that method fails later, I'll have another option, specifically a direction For when I experience negative feelings, like the forces of the situation, these invisible forces disturb and prevent me from moving forward. Do you have any experience in dealing with this? I think anyone who meditates will face this issue. Secondly, how can we best balance our practice with everyday life? How can we help people find balance so they aren't too biased or too attached to one thing? And I thank you. I think the first thing you need to overcome is your greed. First, you're too greedy, asking too many masters, looking for a backup. I'll ask you again, how much do you believe in me? Actually, I'm meeting you for the first time, and my belief in you comes from your book, which was written and published almost for free online at a very low price, and it helps people understand life. Just tell me, what percentage is it? Well, I don't know if it's 100% because I'm meeting you for the first time, but I feel like you're someone I can trust to advise me, and you're capable of advising me through difficult times. You're very clever, you don't dare say 100%, but you still really want advice. Well, I only advise people who believe in me 100% or more. No, because your question is quite difficult, and what I share might not be convincing enough, or you might get confused by previous advice. So you need to trust the person you trust most, and once you do, follow their advice. To trust someone, observe their life closely enough to be convinced. Their words must align with their life. They must be liberated, wise, and truly happy. Then you can be confident that their advice will lead you on the right path. I completely believe that, and I've observed you for quite a while. Regarding your second question, I only see loss. So even if you don't believe in me 100%, I'll still try to answer you. You can use a lot. During meditation to overcome your limitations and reach wisdom, there's no force greater than yourself. Don't be afraid of anything external. Externally, there are forces, circumstances, people, and other influences, but the biggest obstacle is still yourself. And the biggest issue is not understanding what you're experiencing, like ego. Often, when you're angry, you don't realize it. When you're self-conscious, you're unaware. Even when you're greedy, you don't know it, making it very difficult to overcome. Secondly, if I tell you that you're greedy, how much can you accept? You have to trust me a lot. You have to admire me. And you need to have some shared experiences practicing with me. Then you'll start paying close attention to what I say, wondering why I say you're greedy. Regarding your second question, you're still looking for the best solution. You don't want second best. It has to be the best so you can practice well and make your loved ones happy. I must tell you that I don't have that solution because I don't make anyone happy. I can't play your role of making my partner. I haven't played the role of someone who has just attained happiness through practice. I'm just like other spiritual masters. Other spiritual masters only pass on to you their experiences and knowledge. How you apply them in your life is up to you. It depends on your wisdom. But if you want guidance to improve, no. You must observe your mind, especially your greed. Ask yourself why you're so eager to practice, why you want to accelerate your practice, and why you want to make your loved one happy. And why can't you support your loved one to accept and accompany you on this path? You must answer all those questions yourself to see that wanting someone to accept your perceptions and practice like you is a process of sacrifice and hardship to uplift that person. You can't just suggest it or say it and expect them to listen. It requires persistence, continuous persistence. If your practice is on the right track, it will naturally lead you to want to support others and make them happy rather than wanting to walk alone on the path of practice. One of the things you can use as a measure to know if your practice on the right track is that your ego should weaken every day so that the non-self can be expressed outwardly. The difficulty for meditators, if you need to ask, is how to escape the idea that you are a meditator and the other person is not. Do you understand? Zen master. Sorry, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh was a specialist in the Pure Land practice. He had this saying that I read when I was a young monk, and I was very shocked. Underneath the Venerable's picture, he said, standing there, no one is standing, holding a staff. That is who? Meaning, no matter what practice you follow, in the end, you will return to the point where you see yourself existing for eternity, no longer stuck in an ego. As Ngoyen Du said, not practicing is also practicing, meaning you practice in a way that it doesn't show in your appearance, doesn't show in your demeanor, doesn't show the ego of someone who is practicing. But when it comes to handling and solving problems, you are extraordinary, far better than the average person. That's when you've reached the heart of practice. Or in the Sutra of 40, 2 chapters, the Buddha said, practice without practicing, act without acting, attain without attaining, practice without being attached to the ego of practicing. That's true practice. Acting without being attached to the ego of acting, that's truly someone who is acting correctly. And attaining without being attached to the ego of I am enlightened and everyone else is not, everyone else is deluded, then you're on the wrong path. Because you are a non-self collective, and now you just want to find that non-self again, but you search in a way that you end up feeling more special, more extraordinary, and looking down on others. That means you've gone astray. So, if you practice with quality, you will automatically want to share and support others, making them happy, instead of constantly demanding or creating distance between yourself and that person, feeling that they are a constraint, feeling that they are an obstacle. If you still see that person as an obstacle, a constraint, it means either your practice hasn't reached that level or you're on the wrong path.